The July meeting of Davenport Park and Recreation Advisory Board is now in session. We have roll call.
Coiner,
Here.
Greenlee, absent. Dasso,
Here.
Who, absent. Kefauver,
Here.
Meyer,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Powell, Schurz, Sharif.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. We will go to our second item of business, and that is any approval of the minutes from June 2023. You had an opportunity to receive that via our mail packet. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to approve the June 20th minutes. Actually, June 15th. Yes, it's July 20th, but it was June 15th minutes. Pardon my error there. All those approving the minutes as presented indicate yes.
Yes. Yes.
Any abstention or no? They have been passed. We see no public for comment, so we will move on to new business. And I believe the new business is, Chad will be introducing our two new members to the advisory board.
Yeah, so we have a couple new things. So point of privilege, thank you, Madam Chair. We have two new Park Advisory Board members, Andrew Dasso, who is an at-large appointee, and then Arsal Sharif, who is our second ward appointee. So we'd like to welcome them. We had an opportunity, Jessica and I, to do the onboarding process with them last week, and we're excited to have them join the advisory board. So welcome to them. And then our next new business item is, as I mentioned last month, we would have an update on the River's Edge ice conversion. So a little background on the screen, you see sort of that's a timeline of the conversion, but I'm going to take a little step back and give you an overview of how we've gotten to this point. So it started through the master planning process. If you recall, in the community engagement, one of the key things that was highlighted that came out of that was the need for the second sheet of ice to return to River's Edge. So that was sort of the public emphasis or point of origin for us to start that discussion. So once we had that input, we formed an internal sort of staff committee to do a review of what that would look like, which we entitled Reimagine River's Edge, and that was vetted through city administration and council, along with a business model and budget, and that was blessed this past spring. So from there, we then started the actual process, and that's where we are today. I have our ice and turf supervisor, Ryan Devlin, along with our superintendent of revenue facilities, Troy Evans, are going to present and sort of walk you through the timeline as to where we are in that conversion and what the next steps will be, and answer any questions you may have regarding that process. So with that, I will invite them up to the podium to discuss.
Hello, I'm Troy. I'm the revenue facilities supervisor, and I'm in charge of the 3 golf courses and the River's Edge facility, as far as administration, support, resources, and things, and report to Chad on that. This has been like Chad mentioned. This has been a little over a year that we've been in discussion internally about the possibility of the timing of converting the second sheet. And we have done a lot of legwork to get to this point, and it sounds as we turn the corner on making it happen. I'm going to have Ryan explain some things about the River's Edge and about the conversion that's taken place. So I'd like to introduce the supervisor of the River's Edge, Ryan Devlin.
All right, so over the last about 12 years, the second sheet of ice has been an indoor field. You can kind of see in this photo that there's some progress that's been made there, so it's not a great representation of the indoor field because it's already partially started to convert. But for the prep of the project, we went through like an ice usage evaluation and kind of determined that we have a case to make this change and it be a viable change for the financial health of the building. And that included some refrigeration and infrastructure testing, including our cooling tower and the cooling floor itself. I don't know what you do or don't know about ice arenas, but the cooling comes from the floor up in that scenario. So, and then as far as revenue and expense projections, so once we got to July, we were able to kind of hit the ground running with some stuff. And we began gathering some quotes and doing some prepping and cleaning of the arena. There's a few areas you can see we've removed our soccer goals and some other infrastructure as far as batting cages and other turf amenities that we had. And as well as some of the safety netting is starting to come down. Those things are, we're gathering quotes on replacements for safety netting and removal of the turf and, some of the just consumable goods that we need to purchase to replace some of the dasher boards and glass and things of that nature. So through the rest of July, we've worked on some tentative scheduling for fall programming and done some, general housekeeping and facility space optimization type projects. To kind of get some of our clutter that we've used for a variety of turf-related amenities, whether it be baseball, softball, soccer, football, etc. We've got bits and pieces of equipment for all of that we've kind of started to move out of the facility. And then moving forward to August, as we complete acquisition of our safety netting and the dasher board replacement parts and things like that, we'll start putting those in place. Sometime early in August, we'll actually remove the field itself, which, contrary to a lot of belief, is just not rolling it up. It's about 50,000 pounds of rubber granule that hold it in place and keep it soft. So there's a little bit of work that needs to happen to get that out. Then we'll begin to kind of do our final cleaning and sealing of the concrete floor and ice surface areas, and install the remainder of the ice-related equipment, again, safety netting and dasher glass, and a lot of weird little changes that have been made over the years of it operating as a soccer facility. And with the end goal of September being our ice installation timeframe, very early in September, we hope to be cooling the floor. We're still working through some refrigeration, kind of maintenance and a little bit of repair from it sitting for a few years. And then we'll do paint and logos and building ice, which kind of stretches out to be about a 2 or so week process where we build ice, paint a white base coat, put in lines, put in logos, and then build up that remainder of the inch or so of ice to get to a skatable level. Our first booked event is 9/29 on that arena, so our goal is to have ice in a week or so before that, so we can kind of do some break-in period stuff that we need to do with a new ice surface. And then the Quad City Storm will be doing their training camp the 29th and 30th for our first events on the new arena. Some of the off-season opportunities, I did mention the second sheet of ice will operate through kind of a winter season. So generally September through mid to late March, early April, just depending on event scheduling. And then we will melt that arena out. We don't have a schedule that fills out 12 months around for both arenas. So for a general means of financial responsibility, we'll remove that ice. It'll lower our cost quite a bit to not be operating the ice plant during those off-season months. And it allows us a large concrete space to do a multitude of other off-season offerings such as deck hockey, inline, a multitude of dry floor sports, just about anything you do in a gym or a concrete floor. Event rentals, league rentals, the hockey community that continues to play through the summer will do conditioning and things like that through that arena. And then a variety of other community events that may aid the Parks Department from, a weather, aspect. If something rains out, we have a space available, similar to what we've had with the turf for the last few years. So, and that opens up to questions if there are any. I expected more out of you.
I know, I'm silent here.
Very good.
This is kind of my home away from home for some of you as an adult ice skater. But I'm thrilled that it's happening, that's for sure. Is the rink that's being converted going to be strictly for hockey, or how are you thinking about doing that during the winter seasons?
For our kind of preliminary conversations, the Hockey Association will do the bulk of their scheduling on that arena with some overflow into the current Olympic arena. That being said, it's a youth sport that operates mostly after the 4 p.m. hour of the day. So we will have some scheduling opportunities to expand kind of the daytime public skate offerings, the daytime drop-in hockey offerings that, kind of cater to the, second shift crowd or the third shift crowd that aren't available to be in our building in the evenings. So there certainly will be a multitude of events that happen on that sheet of ice. But from a scheduling standpoint, hockey does primarily operate that facility or that arena from kind of the 4:30, 4 o'clock on a weeknight and weekend basis. We're also really hoping to use that to our advantage to create a really consistent public skating schedule for the community. That's something, and Wendy can speak to that for sure, that's kind of ebbed and flowed a little bit over the years because from a revenue standpoint, it makes sense to sell that ice time to an association versus offer it to a public and, roll the dice on what the turnout is for that event. This will allow us to really have a consistent, Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, Saturday evening type session that just never fluctuate. And people can kind of create a consistency of, we go every Saturday at 2 o'clock. And that was very successful for the facility prior to city operation to have those really consistent community offerings as well.
There are two other programs that you haven't mentioned, so how do they fit into this? The first would be the Learn to Skate program, how that will be impacted, and the Figure Skating Club. I know that, they purchase ice for some of their work and training. So is there kind of just an overview of how they enter into
Sure.
all of this conversion?
Learn to Skate we're kind of a soft adjustment early on, but there is opportunity for expansion of that program. At this exact juncture, it's not bursting at the seams and requiring an additional ice time. But Amanda that runs that program and I have had several conversations about expanding. We have a daytime offering for the homeschool community, and we have an opportunity to expand that immediately. And then through the coming season, into the next, like the following winter, not this coming, the next one, 24, we would have an opportunity to add an evening session. So we would offer Learn to Skate, essentially a Tuesday night, a Thursday night, and a Saturday morning session. For the most part, we've been able to meet our needs with the Thursday and Saturdays, but having an early week offering would potentially open it up to that smaller group of the community that can't make it on either of those nights. And since that grows all of the other ice sports programs, it is important to continue to foster that. As far as the Figure Skating Club and that user group, they have 2 events, 3 events a year that they purchase ice for. And then they purchase a lot of practice ice time at Vibrant or TaxSlayer or whatever name you're familiar with, the mark. They are going to make some of those purchases in our facility moving forward. We've had some conversations with them about scheduling what they refer to as club ice time. That'll happen immediately. They're going to take on kind of a 36-week agreement where they start just through the winter, and then we'll see as we go how successful that is for them to continue purchasing on a year-round basis. But it does, again, offer an opportunity for them to fall into that PM ice time that they've really not had a great opportunity to have over the last few years.
Awesome. You are informed now about that. Jerry, question or comments?
Yeah, I don't know anything about ice skating. I don't even know how to ice skate.
We can fix that.
I,
We have learn to skate programming for all ages.
you're trying to hurt me.
Never.
No. I think it's a great idea to utilize that because I think you're going to really utilize that more than you ever had before. I'd like to see what the revenue, how that works
Okay.
for that, if you kind of get an idea. Because I imagine, it sounds to me that what you're doing is mostly leagues and rather than open skate, I guess I'm thinking of roller skate there.
Sure. So
Tell
we
me,
do.
tell me how it works. Tell
We
me what it's-
do a lot, so we kind of break it up into several areas. We have a variety of user groups that we've talked about: Figure Skating Club, Hockey Association, and Adult Hockey Leagues. And what they do is just purchase ice from our facility to
by
run
the
their
hour,
events.
or-
Yes, on an hourly basis.
Okay.
It kind of is fluid depending on the group.
So-
The Hockey Association buys, what amounts to the bulk of our ice time that is for sale.
So my question is, in a way, is, and obviously you've already kind of figured this out, what it's cost you to put that in there for more revenue? And I know you had just bought a brand-new machine, am I correct? Are you going to need another machine for that ice down there, or how are you going to get that back and forth?
In a perfect world scenario, yes, we would have a second ice resurfacing machine. We've kind of discussed models on how we could potentially do it with one unit. It kind of pigeonholes us a little bit on our booking availability to make sure we're not needing to be in 2 places at the same time. But we are working through some of those things. I don't unfortunately have final answers on whether we are acquiring another one yet or if we're not at this exact moment.
And the revenues would probably cover that?
I think long-term from discussions we've had were,
So an
Okay.
ice resurfacer, typically, if we're gonna buy it new, like the one we did, would be a capital expense, not operating, so we'd build that into CIP. But some of the options in the short term we're exploring would be there may be a lease or purchasing a used machine at a lower cost, to which the used machine would probably still be a capital expense. If we leased, we'd build that into the operating, but the revenue model with the second sheet of ice, with the expanded hours of ice sale, would be more than enough to cover those costs. So we're good with that.
Just curious, that's all. I'm
Yeah,
just curious.
yeah.
You wouldn't be doing it if you didn't think it was feasible.
And
Yeah,
if-
I understand.
Yeah, and if I could back up, I should have mentioned in my start for you all and our 2 new members, River's Edge is an enterprise fund from a fiscal area, and what that means, both them and golf are enterprise funds. So they're not supported by general fund tax dollars, so they have to generate revenue to meet their expenses, right? So this is why we are looking at this approach, because since the city acquired the River's Edge, it has never, or maybe only a couple times,
few fiscal years,
operated
yeah.
in the black, right? It's always had to have a subsidy of some sort. With TBK, the complex in Bettendorf coming online, we've seen a significant decline in our turf usage in soccer and other sports. So in conjunction with the master plan emphasis and the growing hockey association and figure skating club, and in conversations with organizations like Visit Quad Cities, who are heavily into promoting sports tourism, this is the best sort of model going forward. The market for ice can certainly be captured by this facility for this region. And for that reason, this is why we are going through this process from a more of a business standpoint per se than a, but it will, like Ryan said, having a second sheet makes us more viable for more access for public skate, for lessons, for figure skating. We'll see an increase probably in availability of time, as well as making it a true tournament venue from a regional standpoint to draw state, national type tournaments to the region from a tourism standpoint and to benefit the revenue of the facility. So does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Other questions?
I have
Well,
something I'd like
sure.
to add that I should have added at the beginning. Ryan's been, he was an employee with the facility before we acquired it, so he's been with us in our department and in the River's Edge ever since we've had it acquired. So you probably got a lot of that out of his knowledge when he was giving his presentation. He gives us a lot of expertise and a lot of experience at the ICE Center. So we appreciate that, Ryan.
I mean, the running joke I think Betsy developed was I was found in a closet when the city bought the building.
Well, this is exciting news, and so, you know, you hear mumbles, oh, it's gonna happen. No, it's not gonna happen, you know, when you're just, you know, lacing skates or whatever, so it's great that it's moving forward, so.
There is a very prevalent rumor mill through the ice sports community that has been kind of plugging along for the last couple months about it. So it's nice to be able to make some official statements.
Well,
Yeah, so this is really the first sort of public acknowledgement presenting to you guys that this is happening. So from this is the kickoff of us going out and doing some more marketing and branding and all that and all that, so.
good. Well, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Our staff reports are the next item on our agenda, and I assume there's some additional information, Chad, for your report?
Sure, yeah, Andrew and Arcel, my report's always verbal because it's very fluid, and I want to make sure I give the most current and up-to-date information to the board that I can. So my report, a couple things. Next month, Betsy has invited my direction the Little League liaisons because Jerry had questions about the E-mice and Little League. So we thought, what better time than to have the 5 league liaisons and the girls softball liaison come and present an update on the state of softball and baseball in Davenport. So I believe 4 of them have confirmed they will be here next month. So we will have that presentation for you guys and you'll be able to ask questions as to how their leagues are going and so on and so forth. So, right. So that'll be next month. Another thing I wanted to bring up, Mike and I we've been having conversations for a couple of years probably. We are looking to formulate a trail committee of some sort to address a plethora of, I guess, trail concerns, everything from etiquette to advocacy and other things with our trail system. So I'm just bringing that up now so you're aware. And then if there are any else of you that would like to participate, please reach out to me. Just a note per bylaws, we can't have more than 5 of you on any committee. So if there is more than just a couple interested, then we'll have to circle back to the chair to make the decision on how that committee is formulated. But we're working, and then we'll also have some outreach to some other stakeholders in the community that are bike advocates, and try to actually get this thing launched after couple of years of discussion and back and forth and trying to figure out how to move it forward. So the initial thought would be to just sort of brainstorm and see what the function and purpose of this committee would be. I think we have some issues from an operational side that we would like assistance with, pertaining primarily to etiquette and to trail safety. And then there's also some opportunities to do additional advocacy for additional trail connections through the community, as well as looking for potentially some programming or educational components like bike maintenance or lessons, that type of stuff. So not limited to bikes, I shouldn't say that, because they are multimodal trails, everything from bikes to runners to rollerbladers and anything in between that wants to use our trail system. So more information on that to come, but if you're interested, please reach out to me. And I'd ask Mike, I don't know if you have any additional comments you want to make on that topic right now.
If they want to, excuse me, learn more, years ago, Davenport put together the Davenport Go program. They spent thousands of dollars on it, and it's sitting on a shelf.
Yeah.
It's if you study like I do other cities, it's one of the most comprehensive multimodal programs ever developed. And you can find it on Davenport website. So if at all you're bored some night, go and find it. It's called Davenport Go. It's just an incredible program. And it's not just for people like me that bike, it's walkers, connecting neighborhoods, everything. So it's called Davenport Go, and it's on the Davenport City website. And that would give you a really good idea of what Chad and I are talking about.
Thank you, Mike. And then just to, staff has been really busy along with other area partners. We have RAGBRAI. I think you've probably heard RAGBRAI is coming to town the same weekend as the BICS. Estimated like 50,000 visitors between the two events. The Parks Department, Betsy and her team play a pretty big role in the RAGBRAI. The dip site is going to be at the Marquette Street Landing adjacent to Veterans Memorial Park. So we've been having numerous meetings planning with Visit Quad Cities and other stakeholders that are involved in that. So we're excited to have RAGBRAI on their 50th anniversary come to Davenport, as well as the BICS for their 49th running of the BICS. So two big community events coming up here in the next week. And then lastly, I always like to mention when there's education or conference opportunities. Now, the city unfortunately doesn't fund for our advisory boards or commission, but the National Recreation and Park Association Conference will be held this year in the week of October 9th in Dallas, Texas. And typically, several of us staff go to that and attend that. So we'll always report back to you guys once we return, but that's coming up as well. So.
Errands yet?
Sure. Well, do you want, I'll let Chris report out on that as the liaison to the Riverfront Improvement
Might do
Commission.
ahead of time? Or?
Yeah. So that's all I have unless you have questions for me.
That's a lot. Thank you.
Yep.
Because
What are we going to do? Are we going
They'd be in charge of down in RAGBRAI and all that other stuff that's going on.
Yeah, Riverfront Improvement is, well, I'll take it, Chris, since Jerry's asking. So internally, Courtney Jones, who is in finance, has been placed as the liaison for Riverfront Improvement, the staff liaison. They also hired Steph Lacey. Is that her last name? Bly? What? Oh, she got married. Yeah, sorry, Stephanie Bly. She was Lacey when she worked for us, right? Okay. As a staff member that is going to coordinate sort of the special event components that Steve used to manage for Riverfront Improvement. But yeah, that's been internally filled, his duties in that regard, and the additional hire of staff, so.
That's a lot of work doing all that.
It is.
I don't know how you guys could do that. You'd have to have new people.
We weren't gonna take it on, no.
thank you. Thanks. We have also received in our packet for the month staff reports, and for those who are new, our staff reports come in a written form, and if you have questions about that or anything on it, now is a good time to clarify. Betsy, I have a question for you. The park technician that the name was mentioned, or a qualified candidate, can you give an overview of what the responsibilities are for the technician? Is it machinery or something beyond that? I thought technician, the person who fixes all the broken machinery, but I'm sure it's more than that. So you have a minute to just tell me about that.
Sure. So in our division, in the Parks Operations Divisions, we have maintenance specialists, and those individuals are going to be your irrigation, your plumbing, your troubleshooting, electrical, that sort of thing. And then we have park technician. We have a park technician, and that position is more of an operator. So think backhoe, mini excavator, tool cat, skid steer, that sort of thing. So that position is mainly focusing on that. They are a jack of all trades. They report to our park supervisor.
Okay. So it's mainly the larger equipment that's used?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, they are part of our snowplow team. They are required to hold a CDL. So they are able to drive our big tandem trucks, so they can pull the showmobile and help set the showmobile up, that sort of thing.
Great. Jerry, you have?
On the staff report, I just want to bring up, our next fundraising campaign is underway to replace Imai's Golf Club. Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
I'd like to hear about that more.
Sure. So we, as I reported last month, that we're in the process. I've been given the green light to start a fundraising campaign to replace the clubhouse at Imais. If you're aware, I mean, the clubhouse dates back to, I believe, the original course, or close to the 60s, and it is in desperate need of replacement from just a service standpoint to the golf course. It's just dated and small and doesn't really function the way a modern golf course should function. So again, though, because golf is an enterprise fund, council typically shies away from putting CIP money into the golf courses. Usually the golf courses have to make beyond their expenditures to build a capital fund. Well, until the last 3 years, golf hasn't been able to do that. We're starting to build that fund again. But by time, I mean, we're probably looking at a $1.5 million to $2 million building. To try to build that through our capital would take a long, long time through our operating into our capital. So it's been, I believe, 3 or 4 years since our last major fundraising effort, and that was with the Miracle Field. So we've let a lot of those people and entities that helped with that rest, and now we feel is an opportune time to probably re-engage a lot of those stakeholders and people that helped with that, with this, as well as partnering with the First Tee, who is a partner of ours who runs the youth programs. They recently helped fund an improvement or a replacement of the Highland Springs Golf Course Clubhouse in Rock Island, and they're very interested in helping fund and support Imais as well. So they'll be a partner in this endeavor. So I am in the process of identifying a steering committee to put together and kickstart that fundraising effort.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
My other question happens to be about the sadness of the report of the vandalism that's occurred in many places. I know that the restrooms are locked at night, are they not? And so that happened during the day, right? Maybe? You know, what I'm trying to get at, is it mostly a nighttime thing that they know that they could get, you know, by with more kind of thing, you know? And,
So the most recent severe vandalism at Northwest Park, they broke in. It was locked, and they broke the locks. So they broke the lock on the first day, we replaced it, fixed it, they came in the next night and re-broke the lock and took all the copper out of the facility.
so my thought is this is mostly happening when there's low attendance, which is night or early evening kind of thing, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any way we can increase our observation? Have you had any thoughts about that?
So-
We have park ambassadors, but they're
Right.
probably not tootling around at that time.
So I believe we've mentioned to you in the past months that we have had a lot of difficulty filling those positions this year. We had one park ambassador for about 4 weeks, and he found a full-time job and since resigned. And so we do not have any park ambassadors currently. So we do not have a second shift presence in our parks. And obviously with 50-some parks, you know, 14 miles of trail, you know, over 2,000 acres, we're never going to be able to be everywhere at once. So we rely on citizens to keep eyes and ears open and make calls. Unfortunately, citizens are often hesitant to call. I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten into work in the morning and have a voicemail on my answering, voicemail that says, I'm at so-and-so park and I see somebody doing blah, 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 and I just want to let you know. Thanks. You know, it's now 12 hours later and, you know, we go check it out, but they don't want to call the police. So that, you know, and I get that, I get it, but it does make it a little more difficult to catch the perpetrators.
I'd like to speak to that while we're
Okay.
talking about that.
Yeah.
I mean, the park should close at dark, right?
They close a half hour after dusk.
After dusk. I mean, vandalism happens, it's got to happen after dark. I don't see any signs, and I don't think signs is going to do it, but at least it's a deterrent. Again, the fact of the parks closed at a certain time. I mean, out at EMI's, when I'm sitting out on my deck out in the back, and I mean, I hear just about everything. There's kids, all kinds of kids running around out there. And I know what they're doing. They haven't got anything else to do. So I could call the police, and by the time those guys get there, these kids are gone, you know, or whatever the case is. Whether it's motorcycles running around the park and in there because they can get inside there with motorcycles. They can get in there with cars now too. But on the same token, I mean, that happens. So I guess maybe what I need to talk to is maybe go the city council direction and to the police department. You guys can't do it. So somehow or another, we need to curtail that somehow or another, because that's where it's happening. I mean, you got the EMI's and you got the bathrooms are not working. We got party in the parks here, and that was a list that I had here. I might as well talk about it. But anyway, I got a lot of stuff that needs to be cleaned up out there, and one of the major things, if you're going to have that party in the parks out there, the bathrooms has got to work. And I don't know what's going to happen there, but
Yeah, the plan is to have them operational. We're waiting on we've
kinda-
ordered a urinal. And
Okay.
in that case, the urinal was smashed.
okay.
So the urinal was
that's-
ordered and the goal
I mean,
is
it's
to
a
have
shame,
those
yeah. It's a sh-
operational.
It's a shame that it has to happen, but it's probably not happening just at EMI's, it's happening everywhere. Somehow or another, we need to figure out a way that maybe after dark, or after a half hour after dark, maybe we had if the cruisers are out there running around, even if they cruise around, they don't have to stay in there. If they just cruise around once in a while, maybe these guys would see that, and eventually they'd say, well, we can't be doing too much of this stuff because there's always police coming through here.
And we've had pretty good response by PD when we're aware of trouble spots or hot spots. So for example, at Northwest Park, there was an individual sleeping in the dugouts who had, what was it, tattooing equipment or something, and was leaving needles around and other things. We got word of it and reached out to PD, and they actually caught him the next night. So, I mean, when we're aware of hot spots, PD, but again, I can't totally speak to the police department, but they have limited resources and a pretty big city to cover, and they do their best, and we work pretty closely with them. One thing I would say, aside from signage, which the majority of parks, we have our hours noted, but the people that are vandalizing, they're ignoring signage. But we are working actually in conjunction with Betsy's retirement and some of the reorganization of the ops side to potentially look at some second shift staffing us outside of the ambassador program that would give us additional eyes within the park system at night. So that would certainly probably help us a little bit, having them around the community. The ambassador program, I think the real challenge is the rate of pay and the hours, right? Because they're required to primarily work evenings and weekends, and the rate of pay, we just haven't been able to get it adjusted to the point where I think we can attract and retain people interested in that job. So we continue to have those conversations with finance and budget and try to get that program beefed up. So.
Thanks. We have lots of other things that come up, but that is one that irritates me a lot, that there is that kind of activity going on. It's sad that it's a cost event. Are we ready to move on to Chris's report? I guess so.
Riverfront Improvement actually has had 2 meetings since we last met, because they moved their meeting that would have been next week up to this past Tuesday because their outgoing chair is doing RAGBRAI and other people were busy with PICS and RAGBRAI, and this coming week is a busy week. So I'll have a few things since it's 2 meetings worth. There was an update at the June meeting about the Lindsay Park Yacht Club dredging. It's going to be dredged for the first time, well, possibly ever, as far as they're moving all the docks to one side and they're dredging one side, moving all the docks back to the other side. They're going to pull out what they think is 18,000 cubic yards of silt and mud, and that should really change that from an operational perspective. And then we got from Clay Merritt a little bit of an update on Main Street Landing, not a whole lot of new information, but just talking about that there's a committee with Courtney, the Riverfront liaison, and Clay and Chad is on, and others, and that they're working on schematic design with Sasaki right now, and they thought maybe late 2024 they'd actually bid out the construction side of it. So it's not imminent. And then there was an update about Red, White, and Boom, and then we had an update after Red, White, and Boom at this past this week's meeting, and they had over 20,000 people. There were 17 food vendors, which I know is more than in past years. Seems like it was very successful. Their new, as kind of what Jerry talked about, their Riverfront Community Engagement Coordinator is like their boots on the ground employee that they hired, Stephanie Bly. She's learning about Red, White, and Boom, RAGBRAI, the Riverfront cruises. She mentioned in particular was something she had very little, I mean, not many people are expert in Riverfront cruises, I don't think. So she's learning about all these ongoing things. We had, speaking of Riverfront cruises, there's a new American Cruise Lines boat. The Serenade is going to be docking for the first time in late summer, and on September 10th, they're going to have kind of an event, ribbon cutting type thing to like welcome that new cruise ship for the, I don't think it's actually going to be its first visit, but that's going to be the visit where they celebrate it. And then we had quite a bit of discussion about docks, and I know Chad got a little bit of outreach from Courtney about this, because I don't even remember exactly how it came up, but they started talking about the three different boat launch places around the city is Marquette Park, Credit Island, and it's called Busey Landing down on South Concord. And right now, there's only docks in place at the Marquette, one of those three. And I guess there's some in storage that have been out of the river for a while. And anyway, there's going to be further discussion, I think, between Courtney and Chad, or maybe it's occurred in the last couple of days, but.
Courtney mentioned it to me about an hour ago. Okay. So, yeah. But I'm going to powwow with our team, and yes, we're tasked to give a recommendation, so.
Yeah, riverfront improvement just felt like if we have docks, if the city has docks sitting in storage, which they do, seems better to have them out serving as docks if at all possible. So, but there's repairs needed and costs to the Riverfront Improvement Commission and complicated stuff. But yeah, over those past two meetings, a lot of time was spent on docks. And I will say no one on the Riverfront Improvement Commission, I don't think, is a personal boater. So it's not an area that where expertise has a lot there. And the only other news was kind of a future hopeful thing is that there's a federal grant that's being talked about applying for replacing the Credit Island Causeway with the Credit Island Bridge, which could make a lot of difference for a lot of different things. But that's pretty far off future stuff, but quite a grant opportunity because it would, sounds like, pay for the entire thing. So that's something we should all be hopeful for in the long term. I think that's everything from both meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, lots happening, yes.
Council approved the grant application last night for it's a U.S. Corps of Engineer. It's their program. So Clay will be submitting that grant application. But the beauty of it is it's 100% funded. It's not a match. So if we were to get it, there would be potential that the causeway could be replaced with a bridge or at least elevated to allow better access to the island during flood events. So yeah, it's a good thing.
And I was down there today, and that whole backwater is almost dried up. I mean, you gotta have water going through there, and if that causeway was in there, you'd have all kinds of water going through there. Good idea.
It's a fact, but nothing's happening at this point because of funding, et cetera. For those who are joining us for the first time, we have a time set aside for advisory time. And advisory time is for us to initiate topics, discussion, or other things that affect the advisory board. We have, I just wonder if we could just have a quick bleep from our new members about them, I would love to know something like, do we need to stay away from, no. We want to welcome you, and you had an opportunity to share some of your experiences, but, if you would do that, like who you are and where you're at.
All right, I'm Andrew Dasso. I live on at 108 McClellan Boulevard. I have three girls, and they go to McKinley Elementary. I'm the owner of and principal architect for Streamline Architects, and we're located in East Moline. We have a lot of we've worked on some parks. We're actually the design firm for the MLK Park. That's under construction. We're involved in a lot of other things in the community. My wife is a teacher at Williams Intermediate. We own Iron and Grain Coffee House on the hilltop, as well as in East Moline. And I don't know, I have three little girls, so I'm interested in the parks. I want to see the park succeed. I actually had my thesis in college was the riverfront, which I didn't mention to you, Chad, but have a lot of interest in improving the riverfront, making it active, having, it should be a place that people can go and enjoy. And so we love to bike and go along the river. And so happy to be on the board, and it's kind of interesting to hear about everything going on in the community. So
Thank you. Yes, please.
So, I hit the wrong buttons. You just, I told you I would.
Ursula Sharif here, live in the second ward. Work for a Rourke sales company in Davenport, Iowa. Born and raised outside of Chicago, in a kind of a transplant to the Quad Cities. Came down here for Augustana College and decided to stay afterwards. My wife is, I've got my wife and no kids at this point, but she is a Davenport born and raised. We're avid bikers we live over by Northwest Park, so avid bikers on the trail there. I've heard Jerry's a big golfer, so am I. So those are some of the interests, and just wanted to give back to the community.
Welcome. And you're always free to contact any of us as questions come up. And the phone is always available, or text or whatever to staff. So thank you so much for saying that. The thing that I said I would do is report on the group that met on Tuesday with the topic of birding. Birding is a growing interest in the park and recreation area, as reported in a recent conference. But our topic is birding as a programming area for Davenport Park and Rec. And so when you look at that, we really haven't had an official birding program. And so we're investigating where, why, how, because when you look, the Mississippi is a major, major place for bird observation, education, and you can't miss them even at Vanderveer Lagoon. So we discussed, we have so many ideas, but we were working with programming focus and goals or outcomes that would be possible by addressing birding, and community partners for program development. And when Jerry and I are the persons who have the least amount of knowledge. And so I have to say, hats off to Krista, who is our advisory board member, who knows more than you would ever know. She is an encyclopedia on birding. And Taylor Schneider is a new employee that was hired, and Betsy attended as well. And Betsy is our program manager, staff, and Taylor is a staff person, and she is the horticulture and environmental educator. So our first step is to find out, one of the things is the list of community partners or possibilities was quite extensive. And so we felt that learning more about what is available is a starting point. And Taylor is going to make or create or ask for an arrangement to go to Nahant March and talk about what they have in place and what funding is about for them, and if there's like a missing part of that might be something that we could engage in. That was one thing. And so I thought about this, and you know the old saying, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? In our discussion, is it the bird or is it the habitat? And those are two things that are so important. And so I'm going to just say we're working on it, and we will give reports. But thanks to Krista, we are region 22 for migrating. And so, we see birds, but there are lots more birds especially, and I don't know what migrates. So we will learn a lot. So that's kind of our starting point, and we'll keep you posted on what is happening. And I'll leave it at that. So contributions, yeah.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you were able to be there and support this because it means a lot to me, especially as numbers decline. They are our indicator. You know, if a bird dies while you're mining the cave, you get out, but we can't get out. So we're just gonna make things better. And I wanted to add that I was in Harrington Park picking up some trash the other day when I realized that we had a bandit not a bandit, it's a group of chickadees living in the black locust trees. They love black locusts, kind of like how blue cardinals love pines, and you'll find these species and specific plants or feeding off them, et cetera, in their habitats. So right there, just sitting in, in a third ward park, I found a grant opportunity because that's already a small grant through Audubon Society as well as other partners. So just wanted to share that. So thanks again for everyone being there. Jerry, you too. Thank you.
So there will be more, that's for sure, but I wanted to keep it brief that we have started it, and it's overwhelming, but we will begin to try to focus on what might be possible at the start. So that's where we are. Other comments or information for advisory time that you want to add or ask about or expand upon? Our time. It usually happens when we have a short time, but yeah, Jerry?
I probably had a whole list of stuff that we were going to talk about, but I don't have to now because of the fact you're going to have the baseball people in here next month. Am I correct? And just to have a little insight before we have them in, and with all the stuff that I've seen at EMI's, and I've seen it at other ballparks as well, all you need for those diamonds is a square box, a metal one, that keep all the bases and all the stuff inside of it. They don't need any of that other stuff to put on there. We never had it before, and we even had grass infields at that time. So I don't think we need to have all of that in there. So if that kind of comes up, we need to try to keep away from that, because what that happens is they bring in, it's just like in Diamond 3 up there, or Diamond 1 up there, there's that plastic container thing. It's all fall apart and it's laying there. Just needs to be taken out and trashed. The other part that I want out of there is basically that metal one down on Diamond 3. And what they did there, they put a wood framework, 2x framework on it, and they took this 1/4-inch metal, sheet metal, and screwed it to those wood, and they put old hinges on it and opened it up. And I got a picture of what's inside. There's a rake in there, there's a milk box, and a couple other things, but the rest of it's just trash. And somebody's gonna get hurt with that thing, so that needs to go away completely. That needs to be completely taken out. It doesn't need to be there. So I'd like to have that taken out completely. And that other one over on Diamond 1, that doesn't need to be there either. It looks like they've tried to put that together again, and it falls right back away, falls apart again. So the cleaner those ball diamonds are, the better off we are. So before they get there, and I won't complain to them, but I'd want to know what they're doing and how they're doing it, and so maybe we can make that work. But I wanted to say that to you guys before that we got in, get those people there, because it does need to be cleaned up there. And, well, even the batting cage, it's just nothing but weeds in there. They don't use it. So who knows, some kid's gonna get in there and get tangled up in there and not gonna get out of there, because that net's all the way down on the ground again. It's just a mess. And it just needs to be up. The other thing is that great big container. I don't know why we need that there. We should just have somebody take that away and sell it to somebody, or just give it to somebody. That don't need that. And the other thing is that you already have a bathroom and you already have a concession stand, which is brand new. And then that old concession stand down by Pony League, all it is a block building, and inside there is probably just a mess as well. So either we need to utilize that for something, or be honest with you, that probably should need to go away, to clean that up. So I'm done talking, but that would clean up EMIs, and I hope that by the time we have our party in the park there, that big dirt pile will be gone, and they took the trees out today. I think the logs are still laying there, but they did take them out this morning. And we get those other things and get them cleaned up, and I think we'll be fine.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks.
Yeah. That's a lot of work, but you know what? Go to Emi's Park and see all the new look. You will tour us if we show up, right? Okay.
All the equipment that you put in the other two parks, the other three parks there, they're all in really good shape. It looks nice. So you've done a great job with all the rest of that. So I went to all of them today, even Credit Island today.
It was a good day to be out, that's for sure.
Okay,
This is
thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. This is kind of the end of our time. Jessica?
I just wanted to do a quick reminder, in August, our next meeting, we are going to nominate for our positions for an official election in September. That's going to be for the chair, the vice chair, secretary, and Riverfront Improvement Commission. So we will be having a discussion during our next meeting.
Also, I'd be remiss, we noted our two new members. Also, Krista has been reappointed to her seat, so she's with us for another 3 years. Recognize that as well.
Thank you. Great, great. This is the conclusion, I believe, of our time together. And so entertaining a motion to adjourn is certainly in order.
I motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn our meeting, and those indicating yes, say yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I hear no abstentions or people who want to stay. We will call this meeting closed. Thanks.